Hi, my name is Hayden Sugg, and today I'm going to be covering student loan debt and how it establishes an uninhabitable society for future generations in America. When high school students are entering their senior year, they're getting ready to apply for college and they're conflicted with numerous questions such as what is the best institution, where are my friends going, is it a partying school, and numerous other questions. But I really want to get into the heart of that and really argue that parents and students should be asking deeper questions, such as what is their internal motivation, their goals, uh, and finally, what is the return investment that they are going to be getting on their college education? Uh, Primarily, as of right now, college education for affluent classes is no problem because their parents come from a wealthy background. Economic resources are plentiful. They're all over the place. They can purchase anything they need. They're fine. The real concern here is the lower and middle class society. Um, right now, lower and middle class families are financing the higher education through loans. Higher education is going to be necessary in future generations as supply and demand grows. Jobs require those technical skills that college prepares students with. It's necessary. However, when social stratification and social mobility are prevented in lower and middle class families to begin with, it becomes increasingly hard to actually finance that higher education in college. However, loans are there. Loans do work financially and they help students get through college. But the real burdensome of this argument is talking about how the student loan debt is establishing an uninhabitable society because A, it's going to prevent students from finding full-time jobs, and that is associated with the 2008 economic crisis, and also it's going to force them to move back home with their parents so they can afford basic necessities and help pay off their student loans. Finally, I'm going to be analyzing how U.S. banks borrow at a significantly lower rate from the federal government, while students have to borrow at a higher rate from the federal government. Real quickly, in a 2011 Bloomberg News article, John Hechinger and Janet Lauren explained that tuition costs have risen 8.3% in a year, doubling the annual rate of inflation in the US. Really, one thing that also is kind of troubling to understand is while lower and middle class families are financing their education through student loans, these college education tuition rates are soaring through the roof. They're doubling each year. College students are burdened with a lot of loan debt, and it's becoming harder and harder to finance. In the first segment of this presentation, I'm going to be talking about the struggle for full-time employment as a college graduate. According to a 2014 article by the Associated Press, the current employment rate of college grads is 10.9%. Melissa Bruning, a PhD student in medieval history, illustrates in a 2012 Chronicles of Higher Education that her take-home pay averages roughly $900 after her expenditures such as food and rent. The student loans are another subject that is taxing her ability to actually get social mobility and social stratification in society. Um, Full-time employment differs from part-time employment mainly because the full-time employment will earn you more money because you're working more hours, but also you earn benefits such as health care, vacation, and sick leave, which part-time work does not offer. When college graduates are forced to work through a part-time environment and they can't find gainful employment that utilizes their college skills, this is really a struggle for these individuals to find that social mobility in society and escape that student loan debt that they are burdened with when they first graduate college. In addition to the struggle for college students to find gainful full-time employment, they also are moving back home with their parents. Ultimately, when college graduates are moving back home with their parents, it's depressing the housing market because construction workers can't build houses when no one's needing houses. Um, when a plumber needs to be called to fix a leak in a house, when there's less demand for those houses, all these socioeconomic factors and stuff are tied in with the purchasing of a home. So not only is it return on investment when the homeowner sells the home, they're also getting a whole chain effect in society where all individuals benefit on this. In a 2011 Times article, Ho explains that roughly 85% of college graduates move back home. Furthermore, in a 2011 Huffington Post article, Amanda M. Fairbanks claims that nearly 50% of college graduates below the age of 25 are underutilized. So again, college graduates underutilized in a job environment where they're finding part-time work. They're forced to move back home with their parents because they cannot afford those homes, mortgage rates. And furthermore, again, the student loan debt ruins credit scores. So when these college graduates go to apply for a loan and the financial institution reviews the record and sees them saturated in student loan debt, they're going to have a very small chance of getting a loan to buy that house. Lastly, banks borrow at a significantly lower rate than students when it comes to borrowing from the federal government. Currently, banks borrow at a 0.755% interest rate. As of right now, banks are loaning that money back out in the form of loans, investments, mortgages, where they invest in the stock market. So essentially, they're borrowing money from the federal government at nearly 0% interest, and they're boasting highest profits, and it's continuing to grow every year where CEOs are making enormous amounts of money and these banks are profiting. In a 2014 Rolling Stones article, Matt Taibbi illustrates how the government provided a $700 billion bailout in addition to loaning that money out at a 0.75% interest. Banks also reloan that money out to college students, which is another fact that is quite significant when you look into the student loan debt. So not only are these companies loaning the money out, but they're burdening it on the student loan debt, and they're creating this uninhabitable society where we cannot compete on a global and intellectual platform with other generations of society. Topic 3, continued. College students currently borrow money at a 6.8% interest rate from the government, which was illustrated in a 2013 Times article by Webley. This sabotages the U.S.'s ability to compete again on an intellectual and global platform with other countries. Because of education inequality, poverty increases while social mobility of the middle class and lower class evaporates. Finally, this student loan debt is inescapable. In a 2012 Huffington Post article, Kincaid argues that student loans cannot be discharged except under extremely rare cases of financial burden. In 2013, the federal government profited $41.3 billion on interest. Are we really looking at a society where we are profiting off higher education, which is really looking at the future generations that are going to be competing for this country with other countries? And that's really where this presentation ends and wraps up. It's asking those questions of whether we really want to make big profit off college education and saturate these students in a loans debt society where they cannot afford to buy homes, and really it's creating another bubble that will be eventually bursting in the next 10-20 years. And that's my presentation. Thank you.